Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode. My name is David Ibarra. I am a CFP and RICP practitioner. I am also the founder and advisor of Aspired Wealth Planning LLC, and I provide fiduciary financial planning and advice as well as investment management. If you could please take a moment and like, subscribe, or leave a comment on the video below, I would greatly appreciate it. Today's video is going to piggyback on last week's video where I covered the importance of having an emergency fund, but also the importance of considering the risks of saving too much money in your emergency fund. I'm going to leave a link to that video in the description below. Previously, I showed you the benefit of investing your money. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the compound effect of what happens when you invest your money and you save a little bit of that paycheck every month. So let's get into it. This is a growth calculator that I'm designing for the aspiredwealth.com website. Now, if you watch my previous video, this spreadsheet may look familiar to you. The only difference is that I added an extra column G, but let me run through how the spreadsheet works. Over here in column D, we have number of years invested. So let's say starting in year one, that would be this year, 2024, say starting January 1st. Your starting balance is how much you have invested. Now, this number could be different for everybody. Let's say you're just getting started and you put $6,000 in a Roth IRA. Maybe you have $50,000 in your 401k. Maybe you have $500,000 between an investment account, 401k, HSA, Roth. Maybe you have $1 million. Any of those numbers can change, but for this example, we're just going to start with 50,000. Now, the growth rate is where we're going to start with just a 1% rate. Let's assume that it's sitting in a checking or savings account getting 1%. After 1 year of investing $50,000, earning a 1% growth rate, you would have a total amount of $50,500. Now, let's say that you didn't add any money to that account and didn't invest it into any other type of investment, and we held on to that same $50,000 account for the next 30 years. At the end of 30 years, it would be worth about $67,000. Now, why that number? Let's just assume you're 35 years old and you're investing for the next 30 years, and you're going to retire at age 65, which is a pretty average number. Now, one of the things we can do is we can change this growth rate. Let's say that you don't want that money sitting in a checking or savings account and that you want to invest it into the market, and you were able to get a consistent 7% rate of return by investing in the market, being diversified, rebalancing, basically doing all of the things that are appropriate for your portfolio. That same $50,000 growing at a 7% rate is now worth $380,000. So that $67,000 is already worth multiple times what it was going to be worth over the same 30 years. Now what we want to do is take that one step further and say, what happens if I were to take a little bit of my paycheck that I have left over at the end of the month and continue to invest it in addition to the starting balance? Here's what additional savings every month does to your investment balance. So running with the example that we used just a moment ago, we have a starting investment balance of $50,000, and let's say it's growing at 7%. At the end of 30 years, that balance is going to be $380,612 and some change. So I'm going to go ahead and put that number in here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and add a monthly contribution. So let's say we have some money left over at the end of the month and we want to put into our investment account. We're going to start with a very small amount, and we're going to say, what happens if we were to add $100 at the end of every month, and what that would do over the same 30 years, assuming you get the exact same growth rate of 7%. Well, now, instead of having $380,000 at the end of 30 years, your account balance has gone up to $497,602. Okay. So new balance, that's a difference of 24% on your retirement balance just by adding $100 a month to your investment account. I like to keep my videos pretty short and digestible, so I want to show you one more quick example. Now, in the two examples that I used previously, I used a starting balance of $50,000, but what if you're in a position to say, hey, I don't have $50,000 in my 401k or IRA or HSA and things like that? What happens if you're just starting with a very basic balance of $1,000 invested? Over the course of the same 30 years, if you still want to get to that same $500,000 investment, well, here's what it would take. Instead of doing $100 a month contribution, that's not going to quite get you there. At the end of 30 years, $100 invested for the next 30 years is worth $124,000. But if we're starting behind and we want to still get to that $500,000 mark, you would actually need to save closer to $400 a month. So you're starting with $1,000, saving $400 a month, growing at 7% over the course of the next 30 years would get you pretty close to that ending balance of someone who started with 50,000 and only saved $100 a month. And really that just goes to articulate that it is important to start saving early and saving often. Now, what I've effectively done is showed you how to build up a $500,000 retirement balance, whether you're just starting out in the investing world or whether you've already started a nest egg and have about $50,000 saved up. Now, I'm going to continue on this topic in next week's video, and I'm really going to try to articulate why it's going to be more important for someone who doesn't have a lot of savings to save an additional $100 a month than someone who earns $500,000 a year and saves an extra $500 a month. I want to keep it short and simple for today. So if you have any questions about the retirement growth calculator or any of the assumptions, please feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to get those questions answered. If you could please take a moment to like, subscribe, comment, share the video, I would greatly appreciate it. And be sure to look out for my video next week. Thanks. Bye.